Once a PW inspector asked Bhagavan, "How can we live a pure life in this world?" And he replied, "You know the Natankal, a standing stone fixed at a road junction we have in our villages in the Madurai district? See how many uses it has? Villagers place their headloads on it when they take rest. Cows use it as a scratching post. Beetle chewers wipe their surplus chunam, lime paste on it, and others spit on it. We must live in this world like the Natankal." It is only in our view that Bhagavan appears to be compassionate. He actually has no compassion because compassion entails the existence of others, and in his view there are no others. However, it is also true to say that he has perfect compassion because he loves us all as himself. So he truly suffers with each of our sufferings. See the paradoxical nature of self-knowledge? It reconciles irreconcilable opposites. It makes having no compassion the same as having perfect compassion. Who can understand the state of self-knowledge? Love is our being, desire is our rising. Love wants oneness, desire wants manyness. The movement of love is towards oneness, and of desire is towards manyness. Love is ever self-contented. Desire is ever discontented. The fulfillment and perfect state of love is self-love, svatma bhakti, which is the experience of absolute oneness. But desire can never be fulfilled. Therefore, all yogas or sadhanas aim towards oneness, which is sometimes called union with God or the reality. And one-pointedness of mind is their vehicle. Sadhana is a growth from desire to love, and self-love is the driving force behind this growth. The development of this growth towards love leads the aspirant to love just one God or one Guru, which is the highest form of dualistic love, and the most effective aid to develop perfect self-love. The Guru shows the aspirant that the only means to achieve perfect self-love is self-attention. The aspirant therefore eagerly practices self-attention, but until his practice blossoms into true self-love, he continues clinging to his Guru as the object of his love. His Guru Bhakti is the stay and support that steadies and strengthens his growth towards self-love. This is the state that Bhagavan describes in verse 72 of RAMANA Mahārshi. Arunachala, protect me as a support to cling to, so that I may not droop down like a tender creeper without support. The aspirant's love for and faith in his Guru constantly drives him back to self-attention, which is the path taught by the Guru, and as a result, he comes to be increasingly convinced that his own self is the true form of his Guru. Thus, his dualistic Guru Bhakti dissolves naturally and smoothly into non-dualistic Svatma Bhakti, love for self alone, which is his true nature. One-pointed fidelity to the Guru and his teachings is therefore an essential ingredient in sadhana, and it alone will yield the much longed-for fruit of self-knowledge. And Sri Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, Bhagavan teaches us the true nature of Guru Bhakti. For example, Arunachala, when I took refuge in you as my only God, you completely annihilated me. Is there any deficiency or grievance for me? Do whatever you wish, my beloved. Only give me ever-increasing love for your 2 feet. What say? Your will is my will, and that alone is happiness for me, Lord of my life. It is necessary to attempt to practice self-attention before one can possibly write commentaries on or translate Bhagavan's work. Only by repeatedly trying and failing can one begin to understand his teachings. Take, for instance, the first sentence of Uladu Narpadu. Except what is, does consciousness that is exist? To a mind that is unaccustomed to the practice of self-attention, This will seem like a very abstract idea because the first word, uladu, what is or existence, will immediately suggest the existence of things. So such a mind will understand this sentence to mean, unless things exist, can they be known? But Bhagavan is always pointing to self. So by the word uladu, he means nothing other than I, which is the sole reality, that which alone actually exists. However, this will be immediately understood only by those who are well soaked in the practice of self-attention. Such a person will understand this sentence to mean, other than that what is, namely I, can there be any consciousness of being, any awareness, which they will understand as implying, my self-awareness, chit, is not other than my being, sat. It is so simple, but to ordinary people it seems abstract. All scriptures and gurus aim at drawing our attention to ourselves. But as I said in the first part of the path of Sri Ramana, up till now they have all started by conceding to our ignorant outlook of taking the ego to be real. And so they start their teaching from that perspective. But why not start from the source, from what is actually real? Bhagavan was a revolutionary, so he never conceded that our point of view was correct, but instead always pointed directly to the one self-evident reality, I am. Nowadays, people have so many strange ideas about yoga, but in Uladu Narpadu, Bhagavan has given us a clear idea of what real yoga actually is. It is to Muruganar that we owe the composition of Uladu Narpadu. If it were not for him, those 21 verses would have been ignored. A reference to the 21 stray verses composed by Bhagavan that Muruganar gathered together and asked him on the 21st July 1928 to enlarge upon to form a work revealing the nature of reality and the means by which we can experience it, which prompted him to compose during the next 3 weeks Uladu Narpadu, in which eventually only 3 of the original 21 verses were included, namely verses 16, 37, and 40, leaving the other 18 to be relegated to the supplement, Anubandham. Bhagavan was so confident of the power of his silence that he took no initiative to write or record his teachings. So it is to Muruganar that we owe the composition and compilation of the 3 principal Shastras containing Bhagavan's philosophy, namely Upadesa Undiyar, Uladu Narpadu, and Guru Vachaka Kovai. God and Guru will only show the way to attain moksha, liberation, but cannot by themselves or of their own accord establish individuals in moksha. What he said there is true, because unless we want moksha, God or Guru will never give it to us. Wanting or desiring is love or priya, which is one of the 3 aspects of the reality Satchitananda, being consciousness happiness, which is also known as Asti Bhatti Priya, being shining love. So it is the nature of self, and hence a prerequisite for moksha. Perhaps he omitted this sentence so that people would not misunderstand it and be discouraged because the grace of God or Guru works in us by sowing the seed of desire for moksha and then cultivating it into its full blossom state as Vatma Bhakti, love for self, which is itself the state of moksha. In the more recent 28 question and answer version, which was compiled and first published in 1932, about 5 years after Bhagavan had written his essay version, the editor, whose identity is not known, changed the final verb in this sentence, the first sentence of the reply to question 20 in that version, from Sarka Mudiya Adu, which means cannot join or establish, to Sarka Ka'ar, which means will not join or establish. Thought, word, and deed should always be in harmony, each consistent with the other 2, because then only can grace flow in our heart. Grace will only flow freely when it has a clear and open passage. If thought, word, and deed contradict each other, each one following its own course, the flow of grace will be obstructed. I don't know how people can live like that, referring to the behavior of a confidence trickster, because their mind could never be at rest. For such people, grace can never flow until they reform their deceitful attitude and behavior. Wanting is priya, love, affection, or joy, the ananda aspect of ourself. Unless we want moksha, Guru can never give it to us. Now we want manyness, so using our original freedom to will and act, which is a reflection of the infinite freedom of Brahman, our real nature, we see manyness. Guru teaches us to want and love only oneness. He wins us over by love, and we love him so much that we believe that what he teaches us is correct. So in accordance with his teachings, we want to remain as we really are. He says, just be. So we try to remain as self, and our love eventually drowns us, the ego, in self. Who wants manyness? The Vedas say you are that. It must always come back to this I. So what is it? Guru's work is only to make us interested in investigating and knowing this I, to make us want to remain as self. People think that other factors such as meditation, tapas, and so on are involved, but all that is actually required is to want just to be. And who is Guru? Truly God and Guru are nowhere. You alone exist. When you wake up from this dream, you will find there is no God or Guru, nor any ego striving for mukti. Ramakrishna once said that God's anugraha, grace, is ready, and Guru's anugraha is ready, but that one more person's anugraha is required. That is, your own anugraha is what is now essential. Once we have come to Guru, there is no need to worry. Everything else follows in its own time. Once, during the Golden Jubilee celebrations in 1948, I was so confident of His grace that I composed 10 enthusiastic verses saying, "Who can die? Can death ever touch me again? Let Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva all turn their backs on me. Brahma has now truly lost one of its creatures," and so on. Bhagavan merely read it and put it aside. A few months later, however, I was again in a praying mood. I was depressed and felt helpless without His grace. I came before Him in that mood and found Him reading my Jubilee verses. I felt ashamed of my mood. He didn't have to say anything. That was His way of teaching me that there is no need for dejection. People want a living Guru. I suppose they expect him to show them the way to a living God. Guru wants us to see ourselves as Brahman, but we want to see Brahman as a human form. Bhagavan always said that self alone is Guru, and that his body is unnecessary. He proved this by giving the flash of true knowledge only after he had left his body. Muruganar said that Bhagavan always said that his body was a veil over the reality, and so the light only became clear when his body passed away. People say to me, "It's all right for you to say a living Guru is unnecessary, but you had a living Guru." To them I say that what I learnt from my living Guru is that a living Guru is unnecessary, and everyone else can learn the same if they study Bhagavan's works and do a little manana, reflection on their import. Unless you understand that self is Guru, even a living Guru cannot help you. Most people who were with Bhagavan didn't get moksha because they didn't want it. Bhagavan teaches us that sooner or later we must be satisfied with self. So why not be satisfied with it now? People think that the Guru must be a person, but Guru is only the first person, the real I within us. Not satisfied with this first person, they go seeking a second person to be their Guru. Our aim, however, should only be to get rid of even the first person, our ego, to drown our false personhood in self. When our Guru says that he cannot give us moksha unless we want it, we should think, what, am I really such an important factor? And thus our attention should be drawn back to ourself. In fact, Guru gives us moksha by making us want it, and therefore he always stresses the need for us to wish for it and to make effort for it. Indeed, Guru is all in all, so he is essential and he alone can give us moksha. He is, however, our own self, Satchitananda, so he gives us moksha, which is our natural state of being, Sat, by means of knowledge, Chit, and love, Ananda. He makes us know and love him as our own self. Some people say that the light seen at the time of Bhagavan's passing was him returning to Skandaloka, the world of Skanda, the younger son of Lord Shiva. First they tried to limit him as a body, and then they tried to limit him as a light. Their minds are so bound up in limitations that they have to limit even the illimitable. Bhagavan always said, "Do not think this body is me. I am shining in each one of you as I. Attend only to that." How often and for how many lives have we fooled ourselves, thinking that our social service is selfless? We did it only for our own self-satisfaction or glory. It is natural for each one of us to love ourselves. We are all naturally selfish, so we should first find out what is self. When we know ourself as we really are, we will experience everything as not other than ourself, and thus our selfishness will then be the highest virtue. Only a jnani knows how to be truly selfish, because without knowing self, we cannot know what real, unlimited selfishness is. In the path of surrender, saints sing, "Send me to heaven or hell, but never let me forget you," as if heaven and hell really exist. Their prayer only shows their total love for God alone. They teach us the right attitude, but they know that heaven and hell have no real existence. All these dualities, heaven and hell, good and bad, God and individual, exist only in the mind. So ultimately, we must learn to make this mind subside. When I first came to Bhagavan and heard him repeating constantly that everyone must eventually come to the path of self-inquiry, I wondered whether he was being partial to his own teaching. But I soon understood why he insisted that this is so. The final goal is only oneness, and to experience oneness, our mind must subside, which will happen entirely only when we attend to nothing other than ourself. So long as we attend to anything other than ourself, our mind cannot subside, because attention to other things sustains it, since that which experiences otherness is only this mind. When the mind subsides completely, only self-attention remains, and self-attention alone is the state of absolute oneness. Bhagavan used to repeat this teaching every day, maybe 10 or 20 times, but still we didn't change. He didn't change his teaching either, because to him this truth was so clear. The basic mistake we all make is to take a body to be I. This deeply entrenched feeling, I am this body called so-and-so, is the root of all our trouble. If this tape recorder is not working, we must attend to it and not to other things, because then only will we be able to repair it. Likewise, to rectify this mistaken identity, I am so-and-so, we must attend to it in order to know what it really is, or who am I. Only when we thus investigate ourselves will the false adjunct so-and-so drop off, and what will then remain is only the reality I am. I am so-and-so is the naivedyam, the food to be offered to God, And when Bhagavan has consumed the adjunct so-and-so, what remains is only I am, which is his prasadam, the purified remnant of God's food, which is shared among devotees as a token of his grace. I am alone really exists, so it is the true form of God and Guru. To treat and cherish this filthy body as I is therefore the worst kind of idol worship. If we give up this idol worship by knowing the truth of ourself, then we can worship anything as God, because we know that nothing is other than Him, our real self. Devotion to God or Guru as a second or third person can never give knowledge, jnana. Devotion can only lead to devotion. Knowledge alone can give knowledge. I am is the only true knowledge, so attention to that alone can lead to knowledge. Self-attention is the only true means, the ultimate means. When we awake from sleep, we experience a new clarity of knowledge before we become aware of the body and the world. The practice of sadhana is trying to cling to this clarity. Sitting in the old hall where Bhagavan lived is not essential if you are able to be aware of this clarity at other times. However, there is no harm in meditating in the old hall. If you should not be doing so, Bhagavan will prevent you from doing so. You need not worry about that. There's something special in the old hall that automatically reminds us of our own being. But of course, we can be aware of our being anywhere else as well. Effort is unnecessary for self, because self-attention is natural and effortless. Effort is only needed for the mind. It is the nature of self to attend to self, and it is the nature of the mind to attend to second and third persons. Sadhana is only for the mind, and the effort to attend to the feeling I is only to keep the mind quiet in its natural state of pure self-awareness. It is not strictly true to say that self-inquiry begins with effort and ends with effortlessness, but for the sake of the sadhaka, we may say so. Effort is required so long as the mind needs to be reminded of its true nature, I am. But when even awareness of second and third persons automatically reminds one of one's own existence, I am, because what is aware of them is I, then effort is no longer needed. When we can see only waves, we must make some effort to notice the ocean underlying them. But when we know that the waves are nothing other than the ocean, effort is not needed. All thoughts contain an element of the past or future in them. Can you make a thought about the present moment? If you seriously try to do so, all thoughts, including the thought I, will cease. This is another clue for self-attention. There are so many clues, you see. In practice, we never actually attend to self. All the time we spend in the old hall, we are only trying to do so. If we really attended to self for one moment, that would be liberation, would it not? What do you mean to say that even now you are not liberated? Are you not always attending to self? You know I am, and you only know something if you are attending to it. Even when you attend to second and third persons, it is I that is attending, and that I is always aware of itself. Such manana, cogitation, or deep reflection is essential until you understand thoroughly that self-attention is natural and eternal, and that all else shines by the light of that self-awareness. This manana will lead you right up to the boundary. Nidhi Aryasana, contemplation, the practice of pure self-attention, is actually only for a moment. When you really practice what you have heard and understood, you cross the boundary, and that is jnana. Ignore the mind. It needn't concern us. We are not the mind, so when we lose interest in it, it will die a natural death. This is why Bhagavan is always drawing our attention to self. He never allows us to become interested in the thinking mind or anything other than the feeling I. What is this I? What is the source from which it appears? All that is required is that our interest in this feeling I should increase. That is bhakti. Inquiry, faith, and bhakti are not contradictory. They're all necessary. Inquiry begins with faith. Unless we have faith in the Guru who tells us that self-attention is the means to true happiness, we would not be interested in attending to the first person. And when we practice self-attention, our experience of inner clarity confirms our faith, and thus our love for the Guru increases. Some people think that they can practice self-inquiry so they do not need faith or bhakti. Such people know neither what bhakti nor what inquiry actually is. The purpose of the outer Guru is to make us understand the need for self-attention and to enkindle love for it in our heart. A living person is of course not needed for that. Bhagavan's books serve the same purpose, and he provides us with fellow devotees and other outer aids as and when necessary. The environment or circumstances in which we live are provided by the Guru, who knows what the most suitable environment is for maturing us. When we start trying to attend to the first person, the Guru within, who is self, will start working. Whenever we attend to I, the Guru's work is going on. Once we have been given a taste for self-attention, our love for it naturally increases and matures, like the momentum of a rubber ball as it bounces down a flight of stairs. To think of the real greatness of a jnani is a good means to quieten the mind. When Arjuna's grandson, King Parikshit, was cursed that he would die in 7 days, he went to his guru, Sukha Brahmarishi. Sukha told him that he was fortunate because he was assured 7 days, and then he started to tell him the story of Krishna. Parikshit was so absorbed in hearing the greatness of Krishna that 6 days passed by unnoticed, and when Sukha reminded him that he would die that day, he replied, "Who will die? Only this body." Hearing about Krishna had given him jnana. Sometimes, when I used to think of Bhagavan and his real greatness, hours would pass without my noticing them. Great jnanis are such that even thinking of them can quiet our mind. Once we have wholeheartedly taken Bhagavan to be our Guru, we have no need to worry. We are like the child in its mother's lap. Of course, we cannot expect Bhagavan to choose us as his disciples, because in his view there are no others. So it is for us to decide that he is our only Guru and protector. Once we have wholeheartedly decided this, then we are truly having association or Satsanga with him. This is really the Satsanga that he refers to in the first 5 verses of Uladu Narpadu Anubandham. Once we enjoy this Satsanga, he will be working from within and without. From outside, he will shape our physical circumstances suitably, and from inside, he will work deep within our chittam, where he will root out our vasanas by burning, drying, churning out, or dealing with them in whatever other way is most appropriate. We may not see any changes, of course, because the mind is not a suitable instrument for gauging its own development. The influence of his silence is, of course, dependent upon the receptivity of us, the receiver said. As he says in Nanyar, Who Am I? We must unfailingly follow the path shown by the Guru. We must be sincere in our love for him. He says that he is self-shining in each one of us as I. So if we really love him, we can naturally and happily attend to this I. When we are thus in His hands, He will make us do whatever is necessary. When we should attend to self, He will make us do so. And when we need some other experiences, He will provide them also. If Bhagavan was truly a fit guru, our real self, when He was appearing as a body, then He must also be a fit guru now. But then He was with all His Brahmins, 5 aspects, Satchitananda Namarupa, being consciousness bliss, and name and form, whereas He is now without Namarupa, His false aspects, and hence He shines unimpeded as pure Satchitananda. Therefore His power is now infinite. He always used to say that His body was veiling His true nature, and that those that took that body to be guru would be disappointed. Now His body has gone. He has left us with no outward form to cling to, so that we have no alternative but to accept that I am alone is the guru. I have found that many disciples who have come to Him after the passing of His body are more sincere and have clear understanding than most of those who came earlier. He now saves us from mistaking Him to be the body, so what advantage would we gain from going to other bodies who are reputed to be great Mahatmas? He has said that the greatest Mahatma is within, so why not forget those other Mahatmas and abide peacefully as this Mahatma, our real self? Using the yardstick given to us by Bhagavan, we can now see that anyone who conducts classes and flies around the world thinking that he is guiding others is not a real guru, because the guru does not see any ignorant jivas to guide. Bhagavan never attempted to guide anyone, but just kept quiet, and it was always a great wonder to him when people came to him saying, "Bhagavan, I do not know myself, so please show the way to self." What could he reply? He could only counter-question. Who does not know? Whose self? Who is this I? A mantra is a set of sacred syllables, and the word literally means that which protects when meditated on, coming from the same root as manas, mind, and manana, meditation or cogitation. Who is to be protected? The ego? A name of God will at least lead us to God, but a mantra will only protect us, our ego, mind, or individuality, from God. There has been so much talk in India about mantras that nowadays people are not satisfied unless they are given a mantra. However, mantras are only for worldly things, so Bhagavan and Ramakrishna never initiated anyone with mantras. Bhagavan's instruction concerning mantra japa was that we should watch the source from which the sound of the mantra rises. What did he mean? Since the sound rises only from oneself, who repeats the mantra, he meant that we should ignore the mantra and instead cling fast to self-attention. The mind must be made one-pointed so that it will cling to one thing alone. But for that it is not necessary to practice concentration on any second or third person, such as our breathing, a mantra, or a form of God. We can just as well start a concentration practice by attending to the first person I. If we wish to learn the cycle in order to cycle to Tirukoilur, it is not necessary to practice in some open space here. Why not start our practice on the road to Tirukoilur? Likewise, since self is our goal, why not start by attending to self? Some people may say that attending to I is more difficult than attending to other things, but how can they prove their claim? In Part 1 of the Path of Sri Ramana, I have explained what is difficult and what is easy. Whenever your attention wanders, you must draw it back to its target, and this is easy to do, whether that target is I or some object. Attending to the first person is the direct means, and attending to anything else is in no way any easier. Indeed, practicing concentration on any object will only increase the outgoing tendency of the mind and will thus hinder us when we turn towards self. In Nanyar, Bhagavan says, when the body dies, the mind ceases and takes the prana away. This simply means that when the mind subsides into its source, the tendency or habit of breathing also subsides. Then as soon as the mind rises again, projecting a new body, the function of breathing restarts automatically and immediately. Whenever there is a body consciousness, there is breathing. Breathing is an ingrained habit of the mind. And if we try to see how breathing starts, the mind subsides. This is another clue for self-attention, because what breathing starts from is only ourself. Scientists talk of an involuntary nervous system, but there is no such thing. If they look to see how these involuntary functions start, they would understand that all physical functions are volition-driven actions of the mind, so they can be controlled if they are scrutinized by a sharp and refined mind. Bhagavan used to say that dream is the activity of a half-confused mind, and waking is the activity of a fully confused mind. In fact, the mind itself is confusion. We have so many confused beliefs that we are born, that we have a past and a future, and so on. But if we really consider all such things, we will see that they are known only after we come into existence as this mind. If we carefully scrutinize the mind to see how and when all these thoughts arise, we will find that I am alone is always shining. The past and future are only thoughts existing now in the present moment. Therefore, I am a puka atheist. I always say, don't believe what you don't know. The only thing we know directly and for certain is I am. We know of our birth only by hearing about it from others, but we know these others only after knowing ourselves. Our present knowledge of the past is only ideas obtained from memory or external sources, which are second or third persons. But we know second and third persons only after knowing the first person. Our belief in the future also relies upon a second or third person, namely the inferring faculty of our intellect. Even our experiences of the present moment are known only indirectly through our mind and senses. Hence, all knowledge is merely a reflection of our original knowledge, I am. It is all a flimsy reflection of our own self-awareness, and seems real and substantial only because of our mental confusion, which will disappear if we keenly scrutinize the first person or the present moment. In Nanyar, Bhagavan says that those who earn the gracious glance of the Guru will surely be saved. But the Guru's glance is not just the glance of his physical eyes. If we wish to know if someone is looking at us, we must look at them. And since self is the Guru, we must turn selfward to see if self is looking at us. Indeed, the Guru is always looking at us. So in order to be saved, we only have to attend to him who shines as I. Many people say to me, this self-inquiry is difficult, so please tell us what self-surrender is. But in Nanyar, Bhagavan says that self-attention alone is self-surrender. Being completely absorbed in Atmanishta, self-abidance, giving not even the slightest room to the rising of any thought other than Atma Chintana, self-contemplation, is giving ourselves to God. When people ask me what meditation Bhagavan taught, I replied that meditation means thinking. But Bhagavan instructed us not to think, to stop meditating. This is what he teaches us in the first Mangalam verse of Uladu Narpadu. Since the existing reality exists without thought in the heart, who can or how to meditate on that existing reality, which is called heart? Being as it is in the heart alone is meditating experience. Thus, the aim of all yogas is to make the mind one-pointed so that it has the strength to abide firmly in its source. That is why I always recommend people to stick to one guru and wholeheartedly follow his teaching. even if the guru is a bogus one, so long as your guru bhakti is sincere, your one-pointedness of mind will soon give you the clarity to see that he is bogus. This is why Bhagavan criticized people going to many Mahatmas. For example, in verse 121 of Guru Vachaka Kovai, he says, "You who desire to see with wonder that Mahatma and this Mahatma, if you investigate and experience the nature of your own Mahatma, great self within you, you will see that every Mahatma is only that one, your own self." If you meet one real Mahatma, he will teach you that the Atma in you is the same as the Atma in all Mahatmas, and that it is therefore futile to go to any other Mahatmas. One-pointed Guru Bhakti is essential for the earnest practice of self-attention. Another clue for self-attention is to try to see exactly when, how, and from what thought rises. Such attention will automatically make the mind subside. Thought rises only when there is self-negligence, pramada, attention to anything other than self. Is attention to the present moment the same as self-attention? Yes, or rather it is a clue leading to self-attention. Attention to any second or third person is not possible in the precise present moment because thoughts, which are attention paid to second or third persons, are always moving. Such wavering attention can never result in knowledge of what is real, because to know what is real, attention must stand still, since stillness is the nature of reality. If you look for the present moment among second and third persons, you will find no such thing, but will find only a constant movement from past to future. However, if you attend to the first person, attention will stand still, and when attention is still, it subsides into its source. You will then know that self is always present in the now, and that all else is non-existent. When people are told to pay attention to the now, they find they cannot do so, because they are only attending to second and third persons. The clue of self-attention is essential because then only can we understand what the present moment actually is. In the first sentence of the first Mangalam verse of Uladu Narpadu, Bhagavan asks, "Without or except as that which is, can there be consciousness of being?" That is, if there were not that which is, namely I, could there be the awareness M? This awareness M, which is self-shining, shows clearly that something real does exist, and that real something cannot be other than this awareness, because the awareness M is a first-person awareness, an awareness only of itself, not of anything else. This sentence is clearly referring to the existence and awareness of I, and not to that of any object, because to be known, objects depend upon I. Since this reality I exists beyond thought in the heart, and is therefore called heart, how to meditate upon it? This clearly shows the absurdity of meditation. All religions teach that we should think of or meditate upon the reality or God, but since it exists beyond thought, how can we think of or meditate upon it? Bhagavan therefore teaches us that subsiding in the heart as it is, that is, as I am, is alone meditating upon it correctly. That is, the only way we can truly meditate upon what is real is to remain as we are, without thought. Since what is real is beyond thought, thought can never take us to it. To attain it, we must give up all thought, including the first thought, the I that thinks and just be as it is.